So now let's see something called pseudo classes or pseudo selectors. This is a semicolon followed by some name, and this is going to be used for targeting some states. So some elements are there, but some state of that element. Okay, so let's say we have a particular link. Let's say a, and let's say https www.google.com. Okay, and let's say there is another link which is simply slash let's say login. Okay, and this is login link and this is Google link. Let's put a new line in between them. Now we'll see that it looks something like this. Now you see that this thing is blue and this thing is slightly like purple, right? Now anything which is slightly purple, by default it means that that thing is visited. Okay, and something which is not purple, it is solid blue, it means that this thing is not visited. If I click this, then this will also become purple. You'll see that. But firstly, let's see that if I want to target visited elements, which means that okay, this link which is already visited, it should not be this sort of purple. I want it to be something like green. Then how do I target that? You can target that using a tag, which is obviously the tag involved here, and after that you can write something like visited, and in that you can write, let's say, color green, right? And then if you do something like this, then you will see that, see, the visited link has become green. Okay, which means that my normal link, if you simply target a and color red, then everything like this blue will also become red, right? But here I'm just targeting the visited state links, right? So for example, if I click this also, and then you see that actually this page is not a valid page. So if you have a page which is a valid page, and then after that you come back, then this will mark it as visited. Okay, so right now that page is not working, so it will not. But anyways, that one page. And how do you clear that? Again, you go, and if you clear your history, you go to history, and if you clear everything, then then whatever the history you have recently page which you have recently visited, everything will become again default color, which is blue. Active. On active is something like, okay, if I, let's say, I just click, right, then you see that if I click this, then actually it becomes active for some time. So it is difficult to simulate that, but let me see if I say, let's say, active and color red, right? And let's open in a separate tab. So target is equal to underscore blank, and it will open in a separate tab. And let's see, you see it became red for some time. You see, when I click, then it will become red for some time, and that you see. So while it is active, that will be red, and that is what we have set here. Again, there is div hover. In fact, you can use it on anything. So let's try it only on a link only. So let's try a hover red, which means that by default everything is like this, and I hover, nothing happens. But if I write this style, a hover red, and then I refresh, then when I hover, you see, when I hover mouse over here, then it is going to be red. Okay, so let's see. Now input focus is basically that let's say I have a simple input element, right, and then I write something like, let's say, input, and then I put a style, let's say font size, let's say 20 pixel, that is fine. So I have obviously a simple input field with some element, that is fine. But I want that, see, while it is not focus, it is black. While it is focus, it is still black. I want that while it is focus, it should be some other color. Okay, now let's make it red. Then I can write input, while it is focus, then it is should be red. So let's say color is red. Then now you will see, then you see right now, while it is focused, it is red, and while it is out of focus, it will be black and with default color, and then when I focus, it will again become red. Okay, so this is what we are talking about. Now video playing and video pause. So this is like video tag. So like image tag is there. Similarly in HTML5 video tag is also there, which you can use for embedding videos, and that has these pseudo selectors called playing and paused, which you can try out. Button disabled. This is simple to test out. So we have, let's say, a normal button here, right? And let's say it is something like okay, click me, and it is so right now let's check it without disabled. So firstly, let's see that everything is there, and in button tag I write something like button disabled, and let's say its color or let's say background color. Let's change background color. So background color should be, let's say, pink. Now you see that right now it is like not disabled. You can click it, right? And that's why it is background color is normal. But if I mark it as disabled, if I mark it as disabled, then you see that background is pink. Or we can also set background, let's say color will be red. Background will also work because it is a shortcut for the whole background, but rather than that, let's write proper background color. Okay, not background color. I was trying to do color. Okay, so you see that the color of the disabled thing has become red. But it is disabled. As soon as I remove the disabled field, again that style will not apply here. Okay, and input enabled. So enabled is just opposite of disabled. So input disabled, which means that that thing is disabled. But if input is not disabled, then enabled field will be applied. And similarly, input checked. So like input type checked is there, right? So while that is checked, then that style will be applied. Okay, so for example, you can see here that okay, so input is right now, let's say value. Okay, so let's write value. So value is equal to something, let's say hello world. Okay, and then I can write that yeah, this is input, that is fine. But when it is disabled, you see, when it is disabled, then also the color is, text color is, let's say, still black. I want to change that. So let's say I want to change it to something like input, and while input is disabled, then it should be, let's say, color red, right? So you see color is red, but I want right now opposite. So let's say when it is enabled, then it is color red, let's say. Then now you see, if it is disabled, then the color is not red. When it is disabled, you can see here, let's say this is hello 1.1, hello world 2, right? Then you will see that when it is disabled, then color is not red. When it is enabled, then color is red. So this is what I was talking about. Okay, and in a similar manner, you can if you have an input type checked, and if it is checked, then you can have this sort of pseudo classes. So you understood that we can use it very effectively to track the states of particular elements. And there are some more pseudo classes, something like root. So you understand that let's say I want to target the, let's say HTML element. Root element is what? Root element is this HTML element for the whole doc. I want to target that. Okay, so if I write, let's say, HTML and then border let's say 1 pixel solid blue, obviously this thing will be applied, that is fine. But you don't need to write HTML actually. You could write something like root, and this will also work. You see, this will also work. Another is empty. So all the select all the elements which are empty will be applied this thing. So for example, if let's say I have a div, and nothing is there, and then I have another div, let's say I have another div, and inside that, let's say I put hello. Then what I'm trying to do is that the div which is empty, I want to apply let's say border is 1 pixel solid and red. Then you see what happens, that this is empty, then only it is applied. Okay, why it is like single solid line? Because you see that this div has no content. You see that if I, as soon as I put some content, then you see that again the boundary is gone, right? What if I want to see that whole boundary but still no content? So for that you can do something like that it is empty but still put some style and put height. Let's say height is equal to, let's say 30 pixel, whatever. Then it will have some still height, and then it will have that border. And why that border is applied? Because this div is right now empty. You see, as soon as I put something, then this border will be gone, that because that content is now there. Empty targets only elements which are empty. Again, there is something called first child, last child, nth child. So if you have a, so let's say you have a multiple, as you can see that here multiple lists can be there, multiple items can be there in a list, or for that matter in any element you can have multiple elements, right? So for example here let's say I have let's say I have some section, okay, and that section is, let's say, item 1, and let's repeat it many times. Okay, so let's say this is item 1, item 2, item 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7. Okay, so you can clearly see that yeah, all these items are listed. Now what I want to target is that I want to target the first child. So in case of empty also, you can simply use empty also, then all the empty elements will be applied, or you can use div empty, which means that all the div elements which are empty. Similarly here you can simply use first child also directly. So but that does not make sense, because you definitely want to target some particular child of particular something, right? So either you use some class, let's say you use class is equal to my class, right? And then you can target something like let's say dot my class and then first child, right? Or you can directly do div also here, right, instead of my class. But then if you are having multiple div, then you will have issues. So let's go with my class only in this case. And then you can make, for simplicity, you can make color red. What do? You see that what is happening is that we are saying that yeah, so basically something like this, if you see, then this is giving me the first child, right? So first child is saying that the element which is the first child in this class, and it should be a descendant of that, right? So that is what I want. Okay, so if you change this whole section, everything, to div, then you can directly write div first child also. But right now we are saying that there is a class, my class, right? And all the elements which are inside this my class, among them the first child, make it color red. So this is what we are doing, right? Again, you can do something like last child also, and then you will see that you will get the last child. What are the other things? You have nth child. Okay, so let's try that. Nth child, what does it do? Let me see. So it does nothing. Why? Because nth child you need to pass some argument. So you need to pass, let's say, 1, then it will say that the first child. If you pass 2, then second child. If you pass 3, then it is third child. You see, so this is how it works. Okay, now apart from giving it a constant number, you can give it something like 2n, and this will also work. So it will give you every second item. You can write 3n, it will give you every third item. Okay, now you see that for third, sixth, so how does it decide? Actually what happens is that n is decided and n is counted from 0. So 3 into 0 is 0, 3 into 1 is 1, 3 into 2 is 2. So n is from 0, 1, 2, like this it is counted, and all the numbers which are coming, they are selected starting with item is counted from item 1. This thing is counted from 1, not 0, not like array indices, it is counted from 1, but this n is counted from 0, right? Why it is that, we will come back to it. So when this n is 0, then you will see that n 3 into 0 is 0, 3 into 0 is 0, then 0, 3 into 1 is 3, 3 into 6 is 3, and that's why you see that 0 is nothing, 0 is nowhere. Why? Because it starts from 1. So the second thing is 3, third thing is 6, and that's why 3, 1, 2, 3 and 4, 5, 6, these items are colored. But why I was saying that it is starting from 0, that is because of this. I can do something like 3n plus 1. And again, I will have the same rule that n start with 0, 1, 2, something like that. If you start with 0, then now 0 plus 1 is 1. And then 1, then 3 plus 1, 4. Then 1, 4, 7, these will be covered. These will be targeted, right? And then you see that 1, 4, 7 is targeted, okay? So that's why n is starting, whenever you give a variable inside nth child, then this n is counted from 0. But the values, the items, item listing, those indices are starting with 1. You just remember this, okay? Again, you can do the same thing with nth last child. So I'll not go into those details, but the same thing you can do like that. This in this case, it is not from top. It is like nth last child, which means that the counting is done from the bottom rather than top. Not. Okay, so not is another selector. So as we mentioned, actually that this has some quirks attached to it, so you just don't try to use it. But let's try something like this. I am saying that 147 is targeted. You see, what if I say something like not and this? Let's see what happens. You see what happens, that other than 147 everything is colored. So this has reversed this thing, right? But again, it becomes very complicated very quickly. So try not to use this, because sometimes you will start seeing styles which you don't intend to. So whenever possible, please try to avoid this not thing. Pseudo elements. Now, so earlier we saw pseudo selectors. So these were pseudo selectors, which are just basically they are not particular elements, but already elements are there. They are just targeting those elements as per some state or something, right? Or their particular position in the HTML DOM. Right now we are more interested in creating some element which is not in the HTML. Something called after, before, something like that, right? So if you see, then let's say, how do you say? So let's say there is some block quote, and you have some let's say something like this. Okay, let's remove this style. This is not needed. Now you see something like this has come. Okay, that is fine. If you see inspect, then you will see that okay, this is something like this. Okay, that is fine. Inside block quote, this text has come. Okay, now let's try to do something like this, that we are trying to do after and before. You're gonna add on any element. So rather than div, I am applying the same thing on, let's say, block quote, right? So let's say block quote and let's say before, and then you write something like content, and in content you write, let's say some arrow symbol you give, let's say. You see what happens. If you refresh, then you see that arrow has come here. It has come, it is not there in DOM. We did not write in HTML, we never wrote that arrow. From CSS, actually we could insert new content inside the DOM, inside HTML DOM. DOM, what is DOM, we will come later. But DOM is, you can understand that this whole sort of structure, HTML structure which is represented inside the browser, the structure, that structure is called DOM. But anyways, we'll come back to that later. Now you see that inside body also nothing is there. You see that whatever block quote is there, we are just having some content, and we are never see, this thing is just before something like this is written, and this is added here. Okay, similarly you can do something like block quote and after, and then you can add let's say content, and then you can again write anything, let's say dot 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 or anything, and then you see that that thing will come in the end, dot dot dot, and here you'll see that before and after both are there. So you understand this thing, this dot 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 is after part, this thing app double arrow thing is, that thing is before part. Okay, so that thing is not written, see double arrow is not coming in the this HTML structure here, but it is visible in the browser. Okay, that is one thing. And you just so same thing actually it will work if you, rather than, so for not for all, just for pseudo elements after and before, even if you use a single semicolon rather than double semicolon, you should it should work. But that was introduced in CSS2. Right now we are using CSS3, and due to backward compatibility this thing will also work in your browser, but please don't do this. Don't do this. The standard convention as of now is that for pseudo elements we use double colons, and for pseudo classes we use single colon. That is the convention right now. Okay, we will see some more pseudo elements. There is something called a selection. Okay, first line, first letter, so we'll come back to that. Let's see selection. Selection is what? Selection is something like this, that let's say I have selection, and then I see, so you see right now if I do select, then you see this sort of normal browser highlighting is there. What if I want some fancy thing, that this color should be something different? Let's try that out. So let's say that on selection the color should become red. Then you see whenever I'm selecting anything, you see the color is becoming, but this is not good, right? I should get a feeling of that selection part, so we should have a background color also, right? So background color, and let's have aquamarine here. Now you see this is fancy, right? So while I am selecting, that part is becoming aquamarine and that color is becoming red. Okay, so that you can do from here. Next thing is something called first line and first letter. First line is, let's say for this block quote, and here also this thing will target everywhere. So let's say I have another div, and here also I have something. We'll see that this behavior is here also, this behavior is here also. But if I do here, rather than whole thing, I say that no, do this thing for only block quote, then you see that here this is not applied, but here that thing is applied. Okay, next thing is that we can do something like this, which is let's do only on block quote. So block quote, and then we can do first line, right? And then let's say not color, let's say its font size is slightly bigger, let's say 125%. So its font size will be slightly bigger. Now you see that all the letters are smaller, right? But the first line is becoming slightly bigger. Now you understand that it does not matter what text is there in the first line. If you reduce this thing to a smaller thing, right? If you reduce this thing to a smaller thing, then you will see that, yeah, you see the content, whatever content goes to the second line, that will not be part of that new style. Whatever thing which is already, we know that is going to be in the first line, that only will be styled this thing which we are saying 125%, right? Another thing is first letter. So in newspapers or somewhere you must have seen something like the first letter is basically bigger. Okay, so let's do something like first letter, and let's say its font size is let's say 200%. Okay, it is slightly double the size sort of, you see. So you see that in newspapers or articles somewhere you'll see that, okay, article will start with something like big color. So you can simulate that thing in HTML using something like that. So only the first letter of this whole content will be applied this 200% style, right? Nothing else, only the first letter. Is there something called first word? Let me see. I don't know. What is first? First letter, first line. No, there is nothing called first word. Anyways. So we will see a few more caveats. The first thing is that if any selector is invalid, that rule is ignored. That should be obvious, right? So for example, if let's say I write that, you know what, this, let's say this is a div for simplicity. Okay, and let's have another div also. Let's have a line break, and then have another div where I am writing, let's say, hello world. Okay, oh, hello world. Okay, now you'll see that yeah, this thing is fine. What I want to do now is that I have some, let's say, class name. So some class name, and let's say that class name is my class, right? Now I do something like this, that dot class, see, it should be dot class, right? I'm just writing invalid CSS. So dot class is equal to color red, then obviously this thing will become red. That is fine. What if I do dot class? So this is invalid CSS, right? So nothing will happen. This style is basically ignored. That is what I'm trying to say. But I am saying here more important point, that if any selector is invalid, the whole rule will be ignored, which means that if I did something like div comma dot class, which means that div and dot class on both I am applying red, right? But if I do mistake in one thing, you understand? So if I do mistake in one thing, then not only this thing is ignored, the whole thing is ignored, which means that even this cannot become now red, because this rule has been ignored, whole rule has been ignored, right? So that is what I wanted to share, that see here also, even if this part of the thing was fine, but because of this whole selector has become invalid, and because of that the whole rule has become invalid. Okay, so same thing will happen here also. And now the final thing I want to say is that all the things which we have learned till now, everything is like you can mix and match them. So for example, in this case, I can have div dot menu bar, which means that there is a div with class menu bar, space, which means that descendant selector, which means that li should be a descendant, may not be a direct descendant, but some descendant. And we see that okay, ul is one descendant, li is descendant of descendant, but still it will target, because this is like any descendant it will target, so it will target li. Then you hover it, you have a pseudo class hover, which means that when this is, I'm hovering over here, and when I am hovering that time on this li, if there is some nested span, so this is a direct this combinator, right? It's a direct child combinator, which means that this thing is going to be directly inside, this span should be directly inside li, and then we are going to target this hello to color red. Understand? So if you do the whole thing, my point is that when you when the this point hello will be rendered, then if you hover over this item, then that thing will, when you hover, then it will become red, otherwise it will not become red, right? So the point is that you can mix and match, and whatever we have learned till now, you can use it all together in any sort of ordering, and that should work fine until unless you understand what you're doing. Okay, so that should be fine. See you in the next set of videos. Thank you.